Ladies and gentlemen, I am Yuzral, the game is World of Warships, and welcome to a replay that was sent in by Stillguns. He is in the ARP Kirishima. This is a reskin of the Kongu Sea Fast battleship at tier 5. The map is Neighbours, the game mode is Domination, and welcome to one of the more interesting games I've seen or had in recent times. The matchmaking's the first weird thing. There's only one battleship on each team for a start, which is unusual at 5 through 7. You usually get at least 2 or 3. It's mostly about the cruisers, and there's also only a couple of destroyers aside, a Mayhan and a Kiev on Stillguns' team, and a Mayhan, a Sims and an Ognavoy on the enemy team, so they've got one extra destroyer. No Japanese destroyers either, which again, bit of a rarity at 5 through 7. You'd usually expect to see at least one Minikaze in this bracket. However, speculation aside, the game starts out in pretty much the usual fashion. Stillguns, Pit 35 and Bululup are leading the charge towards A. ARP is taking his time shaking out, Gambith Knight is following up, Terrakix and Trojna start going for B. They're actually going to hook through up to A. We'll see them later, although not for very long. And Stillguns has been detected by the enemy team. We have our first contacts, and Stillguns starts lining up his first broadside. He's targeting Snidle's Furutucker. There's also an Alba and an Ognavoy, and most of our spotting at the moment is coming from Pit 35. Rounds go out. Kirishima, of course, is a Kongu battleship. She's got the same hilarious dispersion, but that said, Snidle should really have taken warning from that broadside. He got straddled by a Kongo at 18 kilometers, which, given Kongo's hilarious dispersion, pretty much tells you that Stillguns has a good idea of how to aim these guns. Now, this is a tier 5 game, minimum, tier 7 maximum. You would think that most people have started figuring out that if the enemy are dropping rounds that close to you, you need to start manoeuvring. We have got the Furutucker's last position on the minimap. He's turned about 30 degrees to port, which basically means that when Snidle comes out from behind this island and Stillguns comes out from behind the southeastern island, they are going to be sailing pretty much broadside onto each other at just under 14 kilometers at a constant speed. Do I even need to say it at this point? Apparently I do. Broadside to a battleship, ladies and gentlemen. That is a paddling. Rule of jingles. You'd think we'd put it onto the tutorial screens by now. M. Downer misses short with the high explosives. Snidle has lost a third of his health. You'd think he would have noticed by now, but no, getting that stern turret into play was clearly far more important. Rounds come down. He does get a little bit of damage, scratches the paint, but Kirishima has reloaded. Stillguns fires out again. Down come the rounds, and that would be another Citadel and a regular hit, so that's 24,000 damage, just shy. Oh look, he started a fire. Oh look, it's out. And that's a safe use of the damage control ability because, well, the island's blocking any incoming fire for a bit, so he can tick down some of that 80-second cooldown in relative safety. If he'd stayed exposed and under fire, then it would have been a bit more questionable, but hey, no problems. Snidle is put out of his misery. Do you think M. Downer's going to have learned from watching his colleague get so messily disposed of? Don't be ridiculous. Rounds out, rounds down. Another Citadel, 2 regular hits, and that'll be 17,000 damage from 32,000. Half your health, thank you very much. Meanwhile, Misonus is getting beaten to death by Bululup, but things are suddenly going to get a little bit less rosy because Trojna and Terrakix have aborted their run on B and they've turned left into A. Not a bad decision if they'd done it 2 minutes later, because coming round to the north and about to give them a very nasty surprise is Siebgurk's New York and an accompanying Omaha-class cruiser. Meanwhile, M. Downer has finally remembered what his rudder's for, and he has actually angled up. Mostly, it must be said, to get his stern turrets into play, against Bulaloop in the Königsberg. But hey, it's still angling and it's still making things a little bit awkward for Stillguns. Siebgurk gets a devastating strike and puts down one of our two friendly cruisers up to the north. Trojaner X isn't going to last much longer, but he is going to get the kill shot into M. Downer. Bulaloop goes down to a torpedo. It wasn't totally bloodless. And while M. Downer goes down as well, then Adamski 99 is going to line up on Trojaner X, and well, it's pretty much all over. When you've only got 3,700 health left, even 6-inch armor piercing and high X is going to severely ruin your day. And in a couple of seconds, one more volley from the Omaha. There he goes. Farewell to our two American comrades. So it's now battleship on battleship, cruiser on cruiser, everyone's pretty much intact. It's a fair fight. Oh dear, that's actually very, very bad. You do not want fair fights. You especially do not want fair fights when you're dealing with an opponent like Adamski 99 who actually knows what he's doing and has angled up. Stillguns cannot really get much of a shot. Doesn't stop him trying, mind you, and for a second it looks like Adamski wants to commit suicide, but Kongu dispersion despite him turning into the fire. He takes 4 overpens and a bounce, a few thousand damage, and is free to focus on Gambith Knight in the Marblehead. You'd think this was pretty much a mirror match. Marblehead and Omaha are, after all, variations on the same basic Phoenix pattern of light cruiser. Adamski's firing high X. He is bow on to Gambith Knight. Gambith, however, is still firing armor piercing, and you can see the difference in the damage that they're doing as a consequence. Bang, bang, bang. Gambith is actually on fire. He wises up, switches his ammunition, but they're into the merge at this point. Both ships have torpedoes. Stillguns fires again, but Adamski is bow on. Adamski's torpedoes miss, so that would be the Omaha B with the twin launchers. Marblehead, of course, is based on the Sea Hull, and they come into the merge. It's basically going to come down to who gets more hits, and ultimately who gets the Citadel, and Adamski comes out of it in one piece. Of course, he's not going to last much longer, and Stillguns puts him down with one final hit. So, battleship on battleship. Teddy Bear on Kanmusu? Yeah, she's not even in the game. Maybe if it was Iowa or Warspite. However, it is 1-on-1 for the moment. Both players are angled up. Here comes the armor piercing. Despite that, he takes 7,000 through the bow. That's his first serious damage of the engagement, so he pops repair party and starts healing. Siebgurk knows what he is doing. Look at the way he's angled that New York up. He's got all 5 turrets in play, and because of the angling, he's not taking that much damage. 2 regular hits and 1 bounce there, even at 5 kilometers. And then the Sims joins in the action. And almost immediately gets a fire, so if he's making first volley hits with the 5-inch guns, that guy knows what he's doing. Stillguns has got to stay angled up to the New York here, or he'll just take a Citadel through Kongu's relatively weak belt armor, and that will be good night. So he's got to present a broadside to shear 1 in the Sims. There's absolutely nothing he can do but put some rounds out and get a couple of decent hits. Unfortunately, of course, it's armor piercing. The forward guns are still engaging the New York, and that's dominating his ammunition selection at the moment. So shear 1 is broadside on. He pops his smoke launcher, starts firing a bit more high X, drifts out the smoke for a second, comes to a stop, and then commences the pounding. Stopping was arguably a mistake. Stillguns is pursuing Siebgurk in a straight stern chase. He's getting a few secondary hits, but he's got to do something about this destroyer, and well, this isn't a good shot really. The Sims is invisible. It's a Kongu, the dispersion is hilarious. He's only firing 4 guns. I mean, what are the odds that the rounds would sink the Sims? Okay, fair enough, weird stuff happens. And sometimes it happens twice. He nails a massive triple Citadel into the New York, but he's going to burn. I mean, he's done for. Oh, wait, no, his repair party just came back. Yeah. So, repair party is now out healing the single fire, despite the fact that damage control is going to be another 50 odd seconds and 20 odd seconds too late to add anything useful to that fire. He's actually healing up. In fact, he's out healing the fire. 5,000 health, 4,009, 5,006, 5,003, 5,009, and just as the repair party gives up and stops slapping duct tape onto the bits of the hull that aren't burning, the fire goes out. So, the situation, broadly speaking, for him is pretty good. He's got 100,000 damage, a double strike, and a devastating strike to top his high caliber, which is pretty impressive when you consider that the game is only halfway done and he's only run up 100,000 damage. Only 100,000 damage in a tier 5 battleship. On the wider scale, however, it's rather less rosy because while he and Sobchak in the Mayhan were both having pretty decent games, Bulalup was having a semi-okay one as well, 2 kills. Everyone else was getting beaten up like, well, punching bags. It's down to 3 cruisers versus a battleship, a cruiser and a destroyer. And the destroyer is in a very bad place. Sobchak has got a Nürnberg up his 6, and well, you know what Nürnberg's rate of fire is like? Yeah, there he goes. So now 1 cruiser, 1 battleship, admittedly 1 fast battleship who is on something of a roll, versus 3 German cruisers who, it must be noted, are being held together by happy thoughts and duct tape. All of those guys are 1 citadel from death. And the way Stillguns has been shooting, oh yeah. Well, he's got 6 citadels already. Who wants to bet he makes it 10 by the end of this game? None of that's going to matter, however, if the German cruisers can coordinate and just run away from him while keeping him spotted. They know exactly where he is. Kongu and Kirishima, of course, have got this hilarious 16-kilometre spotting range. Not quite as bad as Fuso, of course, who I believe has 18 kilometres, even with camo. But the real problem is that that cruiser under tank terror has just gone to the bottom as well. Caught, trapped, outnumbered 3-1, and beaten to death. So, Lumpa Ponium, let's just call him for the sake of brevity, is going to probably be able to spot him. Now, if he's careful at this point, they can win the match without taking any further damage. Stillguns has got that horrible detection rating, 16.2. If one of the German cruisers just keeps him spotted, as they're doing at the moment, the other 2 can rain fire from behind cover. There are lots of nice low islands over there, including one right behind B. And, well, down comes some rounds, miss completely. All they have to do is use 1 stealth scout to keep him spotted, and the other 2 can knock him to pieces with high explosive. He's only got 14,000 health left, despite the fact that his repair party is 15 seconds away. A few more desultory bits of high explosive come down. He gets picked up again as Umfa clears the island. Do you think the opposing team are going to be that smart? No, of course not. This is tier 5 through 7. People are still learning how to play the game. And speaking of learning how to play the game, yeah folks, it's the rule of jingles again. Broadside to a battleship. Good night. And then there were 2. So, 652 to 628. He is closing in on B. He's taken a few more hits. His repair party is back. And if he deploys it, that'll get him another 10,000 health. He's blithely insisting it's luck. Oh, come on. There's no way this is all luck. Although, granted, Kongu's comedy dispersion means you do need some help from the hand of Hirohito. So, 110, almost 111,000 damage. He's closing in on point B. There are 2 German cruisers left. One of them at least has got line of sight. His detection is still going off. So, do we think they're going to spot and club? Well, they've not figured it out so far, have they? Coming in on point B, the enemy are going to have to do something about this. They're marginally in the lead, but that's about to reverse itself. There's only 8 points in it. Umfa pops up. Oh, for goodness sakes. Seriously? There's only, 20 degrees coming up to 30 degrees? Umfa is at least turning, so he is learning from what's happened to his mates. Rounds come down, but he's not turned quite hard enough. and he takes a couple of minor hits for 1600 damage. Not really damage you can afford to take in a cruiser with no repair when you're on that lower health. Remember, that is now 1 citadel and maybe 2 regular penetrations will put Umpha to the bottom. And then we pick up the other German cruiser as well. Stilguns is still lining up. Umpha's got nowhere to go at this point. He's got the island pinning him broadside. Rounds come over, rounds come down, and he survives miraculously. He's not quite dead yet. Sebastian 010101, however, is in a Nürnberg. He's got 14-inch guns aiming at him, and in 8 seconds, well, he has had the sense to angle up. Mind you, on that kind of low health, it's not going to make a difference. So, take aim. At this point, Stilguns actually staggers his shots. You'll notice he's been firing broadsides now. He just needs 1 serious hit to put Sebastian on the bottom, but he's not sure of his aim and his evasive, so stagger the aim, gets him a Kraken, only needed the 1 hit. Because he was able to fire individual shots rather than a full broadside, he was able to scatter them out a bit more. Arguably, he didn't really need to, of course, because, well, Kongu dispersion. Still, 7 citadels, 116,000 damage. He won't quite break 120,000. Doesn't get the shot on Umpha, the island occludes him. Also doesn't quite manage to bag that 109 before it heads back. Final heal is gone, but he's got 12,000 health, and it's going to be enough because, well, Sobchak points out the obvious. He's hiding behind the rock. Yeah, we know. He's being extremely sensible. Unfortunately, he's against a battleship that's almost as fast as he is, and Kirishima wants blood. And at 10 kilometers, even Kongu can't really miss. So, line up, match all 4 turrets, and, well, Umpha, I realise you were probably going to die no matter what, but broadside on, well, I suppose he is at least trying to turn, finishes him off with a citadel. So, what did that little rampage bag Stilguns? Well, it got him a devastating strike for that kick up the New York's engine spaces, high caliber for the sheer amount of damage he did, almost 120,000, Kraken Unleashed for 5 kills, Dreadnought for surviving more than 120% of base HP and damage thanks to his repair parties, and of course the double strike for knocking out the Sims 10 seconds or less prior to said kick up the New York's engine spaces. Scored a total of 8 citadels. Once you break it down, that is 3 into the New York, 2 into the Furataka, and the rest were singletons. So that is 5 players reminded of the rule of jingles, 42 separate lessons as to why you use your rudder around a Kongu, only 2 incapacitations. That's because he didn't fire a single round of high X through the main battery. It was all armour piercing. 156 rounds out, 50 of which hit. The balance of the damage came off the secondary batteries, 11 hits from 47 shots, 22% accuracy, give or take, which, given that they're secondary batteries, isn't too shabby at all in a Tier 5 battleship. 6 kills, 2 other warships damaged but not sunk. Those would of course have been the 2 Japanese cruisers from the start of the game, and a grand total of 70 kilometers travelled. Kongu does 30 knots, therefore so does Kirishima. 76,000 damage taken, most of it from armour piercing, 25 shells. That will have been from the New York earlier on in the game, but the majority of the hits he took were low caliber high explosive from the cruisers, so he took 17,500 damage in a total of 5 fires, and he did lose a few anti-air guns, but who cares? No carriers in this game. As far as the money's concerned, he scored just shy of 2,200 base XP. He has a premium account, so that multiplied up to 3,300, give or take, and then it doubled again because I believe it was his first win of the day. So a grand total of 403,886 silver once his various resupplies were taken care of. 6,500 XP, 330 free XP, and that was enough to tip Kirishima or Yuzral, I'm not sure who he had on board, over the edge for another skill point. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been Yuzral. That has been Stilguns in the Arpeggio Kirishima, demonstrating that even with Kongu's legendary accuracy, you still don't sail broadside to a battleship. Until next time, farewell.